Good morning vlog. Hello. And today I bring to you how to sew point shoes. So today I decided that I would share with the world some of my favorite tricks and just like how I think point shoes should be sewn. Everyone has to prepare them differently for their feet, like I totally get that. This is just like what I do and what I was taught, and I'm sharing it with the world because I know all of the videos that I've watched of people preparing their point shoes, none of them have been exactly like mine. A few of them are really good. I know that Catherine Morgan definitely has some quality point shoe sewing videos. She uses stretch elastics, or stretch ribbons, sorry. I don't use stretch ribbons, so if that's something you're more interested in, then you can check that out. I don't know if it's really that different because when I've used them once, and when I used them I sewed them the same, so depends how you want to do it. She used a different technique, but let's get right into the video. So, I know it's time to sew new point shoes because these ones are very dead. So obviously if this is your first pair of point shoes, then you won't have a pair before to compare them to. But you can, the arch isn't really that dead because the box died first this time. But this is a lot of bend for Russians. And then obviously you can see the box is pretty soft. And you can't tell, but the top is soft too, which is very painful. So I have my new pairs here. I wear Russian point Rubens, and I mean, you don't really need my size, right? It's 37.5 with 6 vamp to flexible medium shank. So pretty much what that means is the length of the shoe is 37.5, so that's like the actual size. And then the width is dependent on how wide your foot actually is. And width 6 is the widest that Russians offer their shoes. And then vamp 2 pretty much is saying like how long your toes are. And then flexible medium is how hard the shank is. So I guess it would be a good time to go over the parts of the shoe. Obviously, this is the shank on the bottom right here. And then you have your wings, which go up the side right here against your toes. Your vamp is the front part where it's on top of your foot. The platform is where you stand when you're on point. So the first thing I like to do is take off all the stickers because they annoy me. Some people leave their stickers on. I don't know how people do that. I mean, like, you do your own thing. If it doesn't bother you, don't bother. I take the bottoms off too, but I'll do that off camera. And then every shoe is made different, especially because these are handmade shoes. So I like to try them on and see which foot is most comfortable for each shoe so I can determine like how I'm going to sew them. Okay. So this is going to be my left shoe, so I'm just putting on an L right in the inside. High enough up because if you put it like where your arch is, it'll probably get really sweaty and you want to be able to see what foot it is for. The next thing I like to do is determine where I'm going to sew my ribbons. So this is really different for everyone. Some people like to sew their ribbons further back, closer to their heel, and some people like to sew them further forward. And so the hard thing about this is I recently learned this. This is a new thing for me to know, but the arch of your foot, sorry if people are triggered by feet, but here's my foot. The arch of your foot, a lot of people think is right here, but it actually isn't until here. So you don't really want to sew your ribbon, you want to sew your ribbons where your arch is, so it pulls the shoe up against the arch of your foot. So a lot of shoes are sewn with this inner seam, and at the bottom of the seam, if you go straight up, that's where your arch should be. It can be different because obviously every foot is different. So what I like to do is I'll put my foot in the shoe, I'll feel where my arch is, and right there I'll do a little dash. And where the dash is where I'll put I'll center the ribbon over the dash, and I'll sew it with that in the middle of the ribbon. And then on the other side, it tends to be a little bit more far forward for me just because I like to have it really like snug on my foot. And you can always go back and add more lines for adjustments. So I just marked my lines into the shoe, just little ones. You won't see them once the ribbon is there, obviously. And elastics, obviously, like I have said, every foot is different. When you go get fitted for your pointe shoes, they might suggest how you should sew your elastics. They did for me, because what I have what they call a disappearing heel. So when my foot is standing, you can't decipher the heel from the rest of my Achilles. Some people it's rounded out, but for me, my shoe might just slip off as I'm rolling up because my heel is disappearing. So that's why I get shoes that have like a higher back like this. But since Russians are known for not being the tightest of shoes, you have to sew the elastics pretty far down in them, which I don't think would be a bad thing in any of the shoes, honestly. But how I like to sew my shoes is pretty much with the ribbon, with the elastics right against this middle seam. So I'll do an edge of one of the edges of the elastic here and one of the edges of the elastic here, and obviously I'll show you that when I go to sew them. I'm going to show you how to cut ribbons. If you already have a pair of pointe shoes that you've worn, like I do, what you can do is you can use the old ribbon. I would use the ribbon that would go on the inside of your foot because that one's generally longer, to measure out the length that you want to cut the ribbon. So I'm going to match it up to the bottom, and the little square that you have sewn on, I'm going to double that because you fold it over, so you want to make sure you have enough length for that. And then you measure out how long it is. And I'm just going to cut a little bit longer just in case. You can always trim them. And I'm going to cut this length 3 more times so I have enough ribbons for all of my shoes. If this is your first time sewing your pointe shoes, I would recommend cutting maybe 2 feet of ribbon, which is going to be a bit longer than this, just so you can make sure how much is wrapping around your foot or your ankle. And then once you have the right amount, or once you have all of your ribbons sewn on, you can cut the extra off. And I'll talk about how to know how much to cut when we get to that point in the video later on. I'm not going to sew the ribbons first, but I'm doing this first because we're going to singe the ends of the ribbon, which is where you take a match. And if you're younger, you should probably have your parents help you with this, because even I'm scared of using matches. You take a match and you pretty much burn the ends so that they don't fray, which is when it breaks up and all the strings come out, and it makes a big mess when you're trying to put your shoes on or untie them. So I'm going to go get a lighter. I've got my lighter here. You can use matches, a lighter, whatever you have. And I'm going to singe both ends, because if you ever use your ribbons like I do, I find it really helpful to have even the edge that's on the inside singed, so that when you are undoing the stitching, so that you can sew them onto a new pair of pointe shoes, it doesn't get messy. You're just going to hold it. You don't want to put it right in the flame, just a little bit. Here, I'll do this one first. So the edge is kind of, you can see how the plastic is melted and the edges have curled up a little bit. And I'm just going to repeat this on all of the ribbons, and I'm going to set them aside to cool down. If this is your first time sewing pointe shoes, or you want to use a new pack of elastic, I would recommend just taking all they've given you. Even if it looks like a lot, it's probably just enough for one pair of for having one elastic on each shoe. I'm not going to show how to sew crisscross because I don't sew them crisscross, so I don't really know how perfect that would be. But let's say this is a new pack of elastic, so it's going to be either this long or longer than this. And I'm just going to say singe one side of it for now. I'm reusing elastics from my last pair of shoes. So I don't have to worry about that, but I want you to just cinch one side for now. So you can sew that side down, measure around your ankle how much you're going to need, and then cut it and cinch the other side. I'm flipping the heel inside out as much as I can. It pretty much goes all the way to the wings. This makes it, I find this is the best surface to sew on, even for ribbons. I don't like having it flipped over. This, you have all of your ground laid out for you, you know what you're working with, and you can see it all. So, kind of going off, you can pretty much see where the last stitches for me were. Right around here is where I'm going to have coming out of the shoe, and I want it to hug to the inner seam as much as I can when I'm sewing this. And elastics are a little bit trickier, so if you do have a thimble around, just have it near you, nearby if you want it. Now I have my little pack of needles, and I'm using pink thread. I like to go a little bit longer than I think I'm going to need to. You probably won't need this much, but I'm going to right about here. And just double knotting the end to make sure it doesn't slip through, which I don't think it should, but you know. Here I'm going to have the elastic and go through the elastic here, and I'm just going to go through the first layer of the point shoe, and you can see right here as the needle pushes up against it, and then we come right back out and pull the needle through. And we're going to do that for all of the sides. So I've just sewn all the way down this first side, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a little closer to the inner seam than I like it. Usually I like to have it right on the seam. This one kind of overlaps the seam. It shouldn't cause too much of a problem, but for this next part I want to show you the technique that I use on this end when I'm sewing and on this end. So as I talked about, you only want to go through the first layer. This is so that you don't see the stitches on the outside. If you don't care, then don't take extra precaution. If you, like I said, if you don't care, but I prefer to not have stitches visible on the outside. So what we're doing here is we're going to take the needle, we're going to go as if we're doing a normal stitch. Sorry, this is a really weird angle for me. Let me just... We're going to go as if we're doing a normal stitch, and then once the needle comes back through the inner layer, we're going to leave it and take the side of the thread that is not attached to the needle, and we're going to wrap it around the needle, so like this way, and pull the needle through. And this makes a almost double knotted kind of tighter knot on it, and I'm going to do those all along the bottom, the part that is closest to the heel, for this inside of the shoe. So I just finished doing the last side of normal stitching, and then I did the double knotted stitching again along the top, and I am about to do the last stitch, and then I'm going to tie it off with a knot. Okay, so now we're moving on to ribbons. I have got both sides of the elastic sewn. It is tight. I already sewed one side of the elastic on because I had a lot of extra thread on my needle, and I didn't want to waste it, and it was enough to sew one side, which is something I often do. But going on to sewing the ribbons, you want to make sure you have the shiny side out. I use the freed satin ribbon. This end, it doesn't matter which end, and you're gonna fold it over, so it's just about this much folded over, because you want the shiny side on the outside, and you want the fold to go against the, I don't even know what you would call that, against the edge of the shoe. So I'm going to, where that line is, you see, putting it right in the middle, and the fold is going to meet the edge of this. And right along that, I'm going to do the normal stitch, the double knotted stitch, the normal stitch, the double knotted stitch, and then double knot it for the end. And that is where this ribbon is going to live. Into watching YouTube videos, I have 2 other videos about dancing on my channel. and one of them is very old, so definitely take that into consideration if you go to click on it. So I now have my shoes completely sewn. As you can see, I have my ribbons on and my elastic on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, for the Russians, right here underneath the logo is where you want to break them in, because when you bend the shank, it is going to stay in that shape. So as you can see, I just bent it and it's staying. And so this is, you want to break, if you have any doubts about where to break in your arch, break it up higher than you are expecting. You don't want to break it down here, because then you will start sinking in and you won't have a held ankle. You'll be sitting in your toes. I'll insert some pictures. If anything, down here you want to bend the shank this way to help your demi point more. And this is really hard and it takes a second. Don't be afraid to squish your wings a little bit. I actually like to do it on purpose because I have some pretty painful bunions, so I need it to be a little bit softer on the wings anyways. And then you can squish the box a little. Don't do it too much though, because you still want to be able to hold your foot up. For tying your ribbons, I have brought us down to the floor just so you can see it a little better. I'm going to take my inside ribbon, wrap it around my ankle one time and then another time, and I'm going to hold it like this with my finger out. And first I'm going to show you the normal way to tie them, and then I'm going to show you my preferred way. So the normal way is you just keep going. You take both on this side, you tie them up into a double knot, and then you tuck them under. And obviously if the ribbon is too long for your liking, you can trim it. This is a little short for my liking, this is a little long for my liking, but they'll work for me. And then the other way that you can tie them, which is how I like to tie them because I find that it keeps the ends of my ribbons into my shoe better, you leave your finger out, you put the ribbon over your finger, and then you thread the rest of the ribbon underneath. So this is all the outside ribbon. You thread the outside ribbon underneath itself, and then you tie its knot. And this keeps it under to have a more clean fold look. When you're tying your ribbon, you want to make sure the knot happens right between your Achilles and your ankle bone on the inside of your ankle. This is where you won't have any pressure of the knot. If you put it on the bone, you can get bruising. If you put it on your Achilles, you can get tendonitis. If you put it on the outside, it can cause other issues. Here, how the shoe is folding, that's what the drawstrings do. So you want to pull the drawstrings until the folds are gone, but you want to make sure it's not too tight on your heels. And once you have that place, you can tie the drawstring up and double knot it. And then we will cut those about an inch or a little bit more than an inch and singe those as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this in front of me. This is going to be my surface to put the shavings on because it can create kind of a mess. I'm going to take this box cutter that my dad so lovingly let me borrow. It's kind of falling apart, but you can see it has blades on either side. Like I said, if you're a young child, please be very careful with this. And basically the idea I want to go for is just to shave down all the way along the bottom of it. And I'll show you. On this shoe, this is what it looks like when they're done. Obviously, these are the shoes that I'm not wearing anymore. I showed you. I've shaved it all off. You can see it's completely flat, and then I scored the top. So I just finished shaving down the bottom, and you can see how much flatter and less rounded the bottom is. It's also a little bit jagged, but that's totally fine with me. Now I'm going to go with my blade, and I'm going to make dashes like I explained before so that it's cross-hatched along the bottom. as you can. Those cross hatches, I find they make a big difference. So here I have my finished shoe. I really hope that this video helps you in any way. If you have any questions or are looking forward to trying some of my techniques, or just about to get your first pair of shoes, or you just got your first pair of shoes, leave me a comment down below. Tell me what kind of shoes you wear, what techniques you're looking forward to trying out. And if this video helped you in any way, please give it a thumbs up. I'm going to be making a lot more dance videos because obviously I spend most of my life in the ballet studio doing dance things, and I really like to bring that to YouTube because there are dance videos out there, but there aren't many of them, and they're one of my favorite things to watch. So if I could make more for the community to enjoy, then I would love to do that. I also do other kinds of vlogs. I do vlogs where we just go shopping. I've done vlogs at Disney World. So anything you want to see, you can definitely check out my channel. And I really hope you like this video, and I hope I get to see you sometime. Have a great day, everyone. Bye!